here. So in this one I'm going to show you a really good exercise for synchronizing your hands, and I'm going to play it exactly as I tend to practice myself. The tempo may vary a little bit, but generally I tend to stick to around 80 BPMs doing eighth notes. And I do that so I can really focus on transition time. And I'm going to link to a video specifically about transition time, so we don't need to go through that here. And you might have seen this type of practice before. Basically, it's going to be a very systematic one. Doesn't sound very good, but also this frees me up to really focus on the actual tone I'm getting from each note when I play it. So I don't have to focus on really where to put my fingers necessarily. But it's not totally brain dead, because we're going to go through all 24 finger combinations using 4 fingers. Now, when I started doing this exercise way back in the day, it was really helpful because it basically saved me from becoming a guitar player like this, where the pinky is fairly useless. And that's just because if you don't use the finger, it's going to fall behind quite quickly, because you basically lose 1/4 of your ability, so 25%. So that's not a good thing in my book, especially when it's so easy to fix it. So if you had any trouble with the pinky, or you feel like you can at least improve it, I know I still can, so that's why I keep doing this stuff, then this exercise could really be helpful. So when I started doing this exercise, I used to start with a downstroke, but lately, and I mean the last few years really, I've done this more starting with an upstroke, because it really reverses the picking. That's the one obvious point, but what that means is that every combination is going to feel different than the other way of doing it, meaning starting with a downstroke. And also I feel it's even though it's still up, down, or down, up, down, up, I feel you get a bit more focus on the upstroke when you start with that. And that's really important, because if you think about it, throughout all the years or however long you've been playing guitar, how many more downstrokes you've done. Because even just picking up a guitar naturally, most people would do this. You don't really see people doing that as a natural thing. So we tend to be overdeveloped with the downstrokes and a bit behind with the upstrokes. So fixing that, or getting it, at least slightly bit more even, will improve your technique a lot in itself. So I'm going to play through all the combinations here. I'm starting on the 7th fret, and you could start this on any fret. So if you do this, just make sure you change frets every day. If you want the tabs, you have that available on my Patreon, link in the description. All right, so I'm going to play through the entire thing now, but I'm going to give you some advice in between each of these combinations as well. And I want you to pay attention to the way that I practice this, because I feel how you practice something is what really gives you the results, more so than what you practice in the long run. So with that said, let's just get going. Starting here on the 7th fret, 1 finger per fret. The first combination is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, starting with an upstroke. So as you can see here, I just went up that, and then I moved up a fret, went down with the same combination, and ended up on the same note that I started on. So that's the sort of structure for each of these combinations. So what's going to change now is the order of the fingers. So that's the first combination. Second one would be 1, 2, 4, 3. All right, then we have 1, 3, 2, 4. Then we have 1, 3, 4, 2. And then we have 1, 4, 2, 3. And then the last one, starting with the index finger, would be 1, 4, 3, 2. Alright, so that was the first 6 combinations. So 2 of the most important things when it comes to any good practice routine is that 1, you know exactly what to do when you sit down to practice, so you don't waste time. And 2, you have some sort of system where you can change a particular exercise within a particular category, meaning that if you've done an alternate picking exercise for a few weeks or months or whatever, and you feel like, okay, I think I need a break from this, either because you feel really comfortable with it or you're just really sick of it. Either way, you can use the Daily 10 lesson pack, and it's 150 different workouts divided by technique. I cover alternate picking, sweep / economy picking, hybrid picking, legato / tapping, and also mixed techniques. And mixed techniques is, as the name suggests, just a mix of techniques. So it can be sweep picking and alternate picking in the same exercise, for example. And it runs the gamut of systematic stuff like we're doing in this video, but also tonal stuff. We go through different arpeggios, we go through different scales, and all kinds of different fun things to cover. And like I said, it's 150 of them organized by technique, and each video has me playing through the exercise to a metronome with a count in, so you can actually play along with me if you choose to do that. And you also get the tabs, which is always very detailed when it comes to whether it's a hammer on a pull-off or upstroke or downstroke. So you know exactly how I do it in the video. So if you're interested in that, you have a link down below in the description. So the next combination, 2, 1, 3, 4. Two, 1, 4, 3. Then we have 2, 3, 1, 4. And then we have 2, 3, 4, 1. Then we have 2, 4, 1, 3. And the final one, 2, 4, 3, 1. What I focus on when I practice this is to get rid of any type of flams. And a flam is when either the left hand frets the string before the pick or vice versa. And either way, you end up with this sort of very slurry, not very nice sounds. You want articulated sound, meaning you hit it at the same time. So don't get this at all, right? So you really need to focus when you do this. And also focusing on the timing, because even though it's just eighth notes, it's still tricky to get that completely correct. And I know I slip sometimes as well, and that's mainly because you kind of lose focus. So I think this is a really good exercise just for that sake as well, and not only for the timing sake, but being able to focus, because there's so much crap going on now with TikTok and reels everywhere, and so I think our attention span is so amazingly low right now that I think any type of thing you can do to counteract that is going to be very beneficial for your overall life. I think you can treat it as almost like a meditation. And now, it seems like this takes a long time, but it really doesn't. It's because I'm stopping and, giving you some tips here in between. But if you do this, even if you do it as slow as you need to, it probably won't take you more than, 5 to 10 minutes to go through all the combinations. And I think that's a worthy investment of your time. Because a lot of people are like, well, I won't practice anything that I want to use in a solo, but this will free you up to learn things faster, because what we're actually practicing here is your brain's ability to send a signal to whatever finger you want to use, and you actually move that finger. So that's going to be useful for anything that you want to play, especially in an improvisation. Because if all you have is pre-worked out phrases, it's not really improvising anyway. And I mean, everyone uses that to some extent, but you also want to be able to just find a sequence of notes and get that under your fingers really quickly, or play it in real time. So I don't really subscribe to that thinking that you should only practice things that you can apply in a piece of music. So, and especially when it comes to this thing, because it's such a small investment of time, but since it's systematic, you're gonna be forced to go through even those, harder finger combinations. So if you haven't tried this before and you feel like, well, it seems like a waste of time, I can't use this in my next blues jam, well, you can, but you wouldn't be liked much, I think. But disregard that and just give it, a week or two of doing it exactly as I prescribe here, and I think you will find out pretty quickly if it actually helps you or not. So at least try that, and then you can make a informed decision whether or not you think this is worth your time. Right, halfway through, now we got 3, 1, 2, 4 is the first combination, so I'm going to start right away. All right, we got 3, 1, 4, 2. Then we got 3, 2, 1, 4. And then we got 3, 2, 4, 1. And we have 3, 4, 1, 2. And the final one for starting on the third finger, 3, 4, 2, 1. Right, here's the last group. We're going to start on the pinky. Now, when you do this, generally, for all these exercises, another thing that I focus on is to really get the relaxation down and also having those quick transitions. So go check out the transition time video for a deeper explanation why that is so beneficial, but it really is beneficial. That's why I made a separate video for that. It's one of the best things I've ever learned. And I was lucky enough to learn it pretty early on, so it became a habit early on. So I think that's why I developed my synchronization quite quickly, because I knew how to work on it. So with that said, let's just start with the first combination of the last 6. So we got 4, 1, 2, 3. And then we have 4, 1, 3, 2. All right, so when you do this as well, if you find that a specific combination feels a bit weird, I would just write that down. So maybe, or just put a mark next to it if you have a list of these combinations. So you can see like, oh, okay, so I found these 5 combinations felt harder than the other ones. And then you can focus on those specifically, especially on days you have less time to practice. Maybe you only go through the bad ones. And then once in a while, you go through all 24 again. And then maybe you'll find that, oh, actually, now these feel good, but this one, in comparison to every other combination, feels a bit weird. And then you can focus more on that. So that's also a good approach to sort of find a technique issue and then just work on that specifically. But I do believe that doing all 24 combinations is a really good way, because you use all 4 fingers in all combinations anyway, and I think it's a good idea for your brain to get that workout. And also it's not as boring because we keep changing combinations fairly quickly here. If you notice that it's really hard to get the combinations correct on each string, it can be really helpful to call out either silently in your head or actually out loud the finger number. So you would go, for the next combination, for example, you would go 4, 2, 1, 3, 4, 2, 1, 3, 4, 2, 1, 3. That will really help you focus easier. At least that helped me in the beginning, because this was quite tricky. And I also believe it's trickier if you haven't done this before, because of the reason that we're actually learning to send the correct signals from the brain to the actual finger you want to move. So by actually calling out the finger number, that can actually help that process to be a little bit quicker, or at least less frustrating. So give that a try if you find that you have some issues with this initially. So here's 4, 2, 1, 3. And then the next one would be 4, 2, 3, 1. All right, second to last one, 4, 3, 1, 2. And the very last one, 4, 3, 2, 1. right, so that's it. And like I said, this was a long video, but that's because I wanted to give you these tips in between and also giving you an idea of what it sounds like when I practice these at least. So it's really helpful to practice at these slower tempos because you can focus on that transition time like I mentioned before. And also you keep your hands safe. You can practice for longer periods of time without risking injuring yourself. But even still, I have to say that you want to keep your wrists as natural as possible, because if you sit like this, even if you practice slowly, you're gonna get issues with your wrists eventually. So you have to be the judge of that, of course. But I've been playing for over 30 years and never had any trouble with my hands. But that's also because 80 to 90% of my practice, or technique practice specifically, is gonna be at tempos similar to this or even slower sometimes, depending on what I'm working on. So that has kept my fingers and hands in fairly good shape throughout these years. So I don't want you to just sit there and trying to grind things at the fastest possible tempo, because I don't think that's good for your hands first and foremost, but also it's not the most effective way of getting a solid technique. So there's absolutely place for pushing the speed and all that stuff, but I'd rather use speed bursts for that and have a video for that as well. So I'm going to link that at the end of this one. So you can check that out, what speed bursts are all about. And there's other things as well, rhythmic variations and all kinds of strategies to get your speed up. But I think the stronger the base you have, meaning this type of stuff where you really focus on synchronization and good tone and relaxation, the easier it will be for you to speed that thing up. Because if you don't have anything, a strong base to speed up, you don't really have anything to build on. You're trying to build a really tall building, but you haven't really laid the foundation for those top floors. So it might be a bit of a shaky analogy, but I think you know what I mean. So if you had issues with your technique and you can't really get it faster, or you have issues with your accuracy, definitely try this approach instead and see if that helps you. If you haven't had any issues, and the old metronome starting really slow and speeding it up a la Petrucci, if that works well for you, keep doing that. I'm not saying that you need to change anything, but if you had issues with that type of practice before, try this and see what happens.